So I used to do this thing where I'd check my eBay listings or dashboards all the time, like 10 times a day, literally staring at views or watchers or impressions, wondering why my sales were slow. Or when something did sell, I'd hyperanalyze the buyer, like wondering if they were a scammer because they had zero feedback or their address looked weird. Or I'd build theories in my head about how many items to list in a day and at what specific times to please the magical algorithm. And doing this stuff, it felt responsible, right? It felt necessary even, but it's exactly what kept me stuck for years. And now that I work with other resellers every day, I see this behavior pretty much everywhere. I've even given it a name. I call it the babysitter complex. Basically, it's when you spend all your time hovering over your store instead of actually doing things to grow it. You're not sourcing, you're not listing, you're not improving anything. You're just checking stuff, right? Like stats and tracking updates and buyer activity, like that's going to change something. And it feels productive, right? Because you're paying attention, but most of the time you're just feeding anxiety and avoiding the real work that will actually grow your sales. It's like refreshing the weather app, hoping it somehow changes the forecast. I used to think I was being thorough when doing all this stuff, like making sure nothing slipped through the cracks. But looking back, I didn't know what else to do when sales were slow, right? So I defaulted to this sort of obsessive behavior of thinking awareness would somehow magically improve things. And I see that everywhere now, right? Sellers who say they're working on their store when really they're just sort of like circling around it. They're just babysitting every item in their inventory or obsessing over meaningless metrics or investigating every buyer. And it's exhausting, right? And it doesn't move your business forward at all. I think here's what's actually going on with this need to babysit, because I get it, right? When sales slow down, your brain goes looking for things to control, things you can do to fix it. And analyzing your metrics, it gives you this little hit of control, and it feels like you're doing something, but you're really not, And also, like, the other thing, like, reselling is personal, right? We're often emotionally attached to the stuff that we sell, even though we shouldn't be. And that makes things even worse. You're the one that sourced it. You're the one that cleaned it and photographed it and wrote the description. And so when it doesn't sell or your buyer seems off for some reason, it can feel like something is wrong or like it's your fault. But the truth is, eBay doesn't give you much useful feedback. And so your brain starts making it up. You start asking things like, why does this have 8 watchers but hasn't sold yet? Or is this buyer with a forwarding address trying to scam me? Let me just Google it first. Or I only listed 4 things yesterday, so should I list 6 today? Or maybe I should schedule 4 for today and 1 to go out later at midnight. And you end up fixing things that aren't broken, right? Or solving problems that aren't even really problems. And that just drains your energy. And you stay busy, but you're not being productive. And that's where it gets dangerous, right? Because it feels like work, but you're not sourcing, you're not listing, you're not improving anything, you're just reacting. You start thinking, why am I putting so much effort into this and getting so little back? When the truth is you're putting in attention, but not effort. And there's a big difference there. And the more attention you give to things that you can't control, the less focus you have for the things that you can. Like, for example, here's the stuff I see other sellers doing that I basically never do. Like, I don't pay attention to the eBay seller dashboards. I don't check impressions. I don't look at views or watchers. I literally have no idea if my views are up or down this week, because none of that changes what I need to do, right? Like, what if they're down? Okay. Same response, source good inventory and get it listed. What if they're up? Okay, great. Same response, source good inventory and get it listed. Obsessing over metrics just occupies your brain with anxious feelings. And even worse, your moods often get tied to these metrics, right? Like when views or sales are down, then your mood's down, or then they're up and you're feeling great. It's a terrible place to be when your moods are dependent on numbers you can't control. It's like being angry when your football team loses, right? It's like, it's okay to express some frustration, but if you stay like that all week or until they win again, you're only hurting yourself. I also try not to waste time trying to reverse engineer the eBay algorithm, right? Almost every seller falls into this trap, and it's really hard not to. You've got this big, mysterious beast controlling what you sell, so it's natural to want to figure it out, and it's like human nature even, right? I still catch myself doing it regularly, right? Like, should I list daily? Should I post in the morning? If I've got 100 items, should I schedule them out or list them all now? Or should I put them in a draft bank or publish them right away? I get these types of questions from other sellers constantly, right? And I get it. Like, we want our time spent to be as impactful as possible. But the answer is it really doesn't matter, right? If you have the inventory, list as much of it you can as quickly as you can, because it can't sell if it's not listed. If you don't have the inventory, then go get more and then list as much of it as as you can, as quickly as you can, because it can't sell if it's not listed. All this micro-analyzing of the eBay algorithm is pointless because at the end of the day, you will never know if you're right or wrong. Just source good stuff and list it as soon as possible. That's the key to growth here. Or when something sells, you know what I do? I ship it. That's it. I don't investigate the buyer. I don't care if they have 0 feedback or 10,000. I don't care if they live down the street or in Madagascar. Did they pay? Great. I ship it and move on. Did they leave me feedback? I have no idea and I don't care. Is the package delayed? I don't know, maybe, but it's not my problem. I shipped it on time, and if something needs my attention, eBay will let me know. Or take returns, for example. I used to let every return bother me. Like I'd stew for hours and make up stories in my head about how idiotic the buyer was before begrudgingly accepting the return. But that was only hurting me, of course. And now I have a no questions asked return policy. If somebody wants to return something, fine, go for it. I don't care what the reason is, right? If it's sent back to me within 30 days in the same condition, I'll refund your money and sell it again. Otherwise, I don't even think about it, right? And I sleep so much better. And here's the thing, once your business really takes off, you literally won't have time to think about all this other stuff. But when you're starting out, it can feel like caring is the work. That's what separates serious sellers from lazy ones, but it's not. This business is simple, right? You source good inventory, you list it, and you ship it when it sells. And you deal with the problems that actually need attention. All of this extra babysitting or obsessing over metrics or dashboards or buyers, it just builds anxiety and it solves nothing. And yeah, you should track your numbers, right? Don't get me wrong. You need to know what's going on in your business, but you got to zoom out a little bit, right? You got to focus on the right ones. Whether you had 114,000 impressions yesterday or 98,000, who cares? And just to be clear, I'm not saying views and impressions are meaningless, right? They can matter, but they're a diagnostics tool, not something to obsess over or place blame on or tie your moods to. You don't need to check them out of habit. They're not a gauge of whether your business is successful or not. You don't need to refresh your store 5 times a day like you're waiting for some magical number to show up. If you're doing the right things like sourcing good inventory and listing it consistently and pricing it right, those metrics will usually take care of themselves. And so yeah, they can matter, but only when they're trying to tell you something, not when you're just looking for reassurance every day. What matters more is, are you sourcing consistently, right? Are you listing consistently? Those are the things that are in your control. Are you selling? Are you making money? How much money are you making? Your 90-day total, it means nothing, right? Your impressions mean nothing. Your ability to source quality inventory and get it listed consistently means everything. Your profit means everything. And it's not lost on me that all of this sounds kind of weird coming from someone who built an automated eBay data platform, but that's the whole reason we built FlipWise in the first place, right? Not to give you more numbers to mindlessly stare at so you feel smart or busy, but to surface the ones that actually help you grow your business. That's why we make the number of new listings and the list value front and center like this. If your sales aren't where you want them to be and these numbers don't look good, that's almost always why. But even then, obsessing over them is not going to do anything for you. This is why I do a weekly video where I review my numbers and not daily, right? That's just way too much, right? I make sure I input my data every day, but I just don't review my numbers any more frequently than once a week. And I think you should do the same thing. Any more is going to feel like you're doing work, but that time is just better spent elsewhere. So if you catch yourself doing this sort of babysitting with your eBay store, just relax a little, right? Let it go. Just zoom out a bit, focus on what really matters. Source, list, ship, know how much money you're making, and that's it, and you'll be fine. All right, what's next? Speaking of FlipWise, we did release a couple of new features over this past week. I just want to show you those really quick. First, if you use our auto relisting tool, you can now edit the interval that things get relisted. So you can either edit that on your whole store so that all listings get relisted every 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months like this, or you can do it on a per listing basis. So you can go into any item and you can click edit the auto relist interval and you can change it from 1 to 2 to 3 months. What else did we do? Oh yeah, we released some new filtering options. So you can see here, you used to be able to only filter by date. Now you can filter by purchase location and by marketplace. So if I just want to see everything from Savers here in Crestwood, I can do that. And the other thing we added, which is, this is one of my favorite things, y'all have been requesting something like this for a long time. You have a new button right there. It's a little calculator. If you click that on any one of these index views, it's going to show you your totals for whatever's being shown below. So because I'm filtering by purchase location, this is everything that's sold that I bought at Savers. So this, there's 232 items, had a total cost. That's my purchase price. of $1,389. That's how much money I've spent at this particular thrift store. The average purchase price per sale, gross sales, average per sale, net sales, average net per sale, ROI, all sorts of stuff. And so on any one of these views, any of the index views, like active or ready to ship, you can get and see the totals of that amount. So a lot of y'all have asked, like, hey, how do I see the total amount of money that I've spent on all my actively listed inventory? You just go to your list of active and you click that in the top right. You can see here the total cost of all my actively listed inventory is $3,304. So, all right, so we are in November now. So I did want to take a look back at October and see how my sales did. It looks like for the month of October, that's the first month in Q4 of 2025, I had a gross sale amount of $9,711 and a net sales of $4,611. So a really good month for me, just definitely kicking into higher gear here for Q4 with over $9,000, almost $10,000 in gross sales. My average gross per sale for the month of October, $64. Average net per sale, just over $30. My average net profit margin, a little bit lower at 47%. That's because I'm doing a lot of consignment sales. And so typically consignments are going to bring your margins down. You're not paying anything for the inventory, but you're giving up a chunk of the net return. And in my case, I give up 50%. So my net margins are a little bit lower, but my net sales are just way up. So it looks like I had 151 new listings for the month, 146 sales. So pretty close to 1-to-1. You'll see I did have some listing droughts there. Again, this is the stuff you want to look for. 3 days without any listings, that's going to have an impact most likely. I also ended the month on vacation mode. I'll talk about where I went and what I did here in a few minutes, but you can see there the last 4 days had nothing on the books just because I was not listing and not selling because I had vacation mode on. Personally, I don't allow sales while on vacation mode. You can if you want to. I like to go on vacation, not even think about it. So I turn it off and don't allow sales. But let's go ahead and take a look at this past week of sales. And again, half of that week was on vacation mode, just right when I got back last week, right? Last week, yeah. I was on one vacation and then I went immediately, 2 days after I got back from there, I went somewhere else. And again, I'll talk about that in a second. But my gross and net is lower this past week because of that. Looks like I had a gross sale amount of $1,253 and a net sale amount of $677. So that's way lower than my weekly numbers have been for the last month at least. And it's just because I've been out of town and I haven't been listing, I haven't been sourcing, really haven't been sourcing at all in about 2 weeks, which is problematic. But I do have some big bulk buys coming up and I've got some other sourcing to do. So that's going to turn around really quickly. And even so, my goal for the year is $600 net per week. And so even on a very slow week, because I was out of town, not sourcing, not really listing, my net sales were still above my goal. So that's still really good. My average gross per sale, $50, average net per sale, $27, net profit margin, 54% for the last 7 days. I did manage to get 17 new listings up, and that's pretty good considering just how unavailable I've been over this past 2 weeks. And I clocked in 25 sales over the past 7 days. The average time to list, 15 days. Again, no new sourcing, so I'm going and pulling into some older inventory. Average time to sell, look at that, 8 months. That's some old inventory going out the door. You're going to see some of that in my top 10. And my return on investment, 511%, which is a little lower than it normally is. Usually I sit at about 600%, so not too much lower. All right, let's go ahead and jump into my top 10 sales, starting with this jacket. And I wanted to start with this because I actually took a loss on this jacket. This woman's Mountain Hardwear jacket. Look how I can just tell this thing is old because it's like a really old photo setup that I had. I no longer have this weird, it's I think it was a sheet that I was using that I didn't bother even ironing or anything like that. Yeah, I purchased this in November of 2022 at a Salvation Army and I paid $10 for it. And I just definitely was not a good buy because it sold. I took an offer on it finally for $14.50 free shipping, which means my net return ended up being negative $4.18. I wanted to just show you this stuff happens too, right? Every week I have something that I made barely any money on, or sometimes I even lose money. Technically, you might be asking, why would you even sell this in the first place? It's because I did claw back about $4, right? I spent $10. That's a sunk cost. I've already spent it. I was able to, I got a negative net return. I could have just donated it, right? But I was able to get $4 in cash back in my pockets. That's why I took the best offer on. I was like, fine, let's just do it. Somebody will be happy with it for a very good deal, and I'll get $4 back, even though it's a negative net return. So they can't always be winners $10. Coming in at number 9, also not a very good one here. This is interesting. I think it was last summer. Yeah, March of 2024, I bought a big box of a lot of remote control cars and things like that. There's a lot of high value stuff in there, but there was also some stuff that just really wasn't worth a whole lot of money, including this one. This is a Top Race remote control monster truck. It sold for $26.98. It took over a year. I only had $2 into it. The net return was $11.82, but this thing was bigger than it looks, and I really should have donated it. I know I made $11.82, but it was just kind of a pain to ship. It was a bigger box. I guess the cost to ship, the cost wasn't too high, but it was just, I don't know. It was annoying to deal with. And I just, I would not have bought this on its own, for example, but because it came with a bunch of other stuff, I might as well make $11 on it. But yeah, just also not a really great sale. Coming in at number 8, getting a little bit better here. I find these things every once in a while. I always pick them up. This is a smart case for Apple AirPods Max. And so that's the actual over-ear headphones and these things. I don't know exactly how it works, but you find these every once in a while. These sold for $24.99, free shipping. It took 18 days. My net return on it, not a ton, $13.49. Almost anything Apple is probably worth picking up. I don't sell a lot of high value Apple stuff. I just find that category can be a little bit difficult to work in, but definitely accessories and things like that can do really well, including these replacement smart cases for AirPods Max. Coming in at number 7 is this Disney World rain jacket. This thing also took a while to sell. Kind of funny that it went out the door this week because I just got back from Disney. I'll talk about that here in a second, but I bought these back in May of 2024, so over a year ago. It sold for $31.98. That's $24.99 plus $6.99 in shipping. The net return on this, right under $20, $19.86. I think I paid a little, $2. That's why I picked this thing up. Disney is just such a saturated category. It's just, their stuff is everywhere. And honestly, most of it is probably not worth picking up. This one is on the fence. $20 is not bad, but it took over a year. I just am sort of a sucker for Disney things, and I probably buy more of it than I should, but it all eventually sells. And this one was out the door in over a year for $20. Coming in at number 6, this is an LK bottle filling station installation kit. So this is you see these things at theme parks and schools where you fill up your water bottle. This was an installation kit for one of those things. And I bought this at a bulk buy where actually I had some of the LK systems. They sold for a lot of money, but it looks like I had 2 of these. They sold for $39.99 plus $9.99 in shipping. The net return on this one was $28.08. And let's see, the net return on both, $56.84. So these are just the installation kits, and they came with a lot of foam padding and tubes and things like that. So this one came from a bulk buy. It looks like I only have 55 items still actively listed on this bulk buy with a almost $4,000 list value. And I've grossed over $10,000 on this one. My net is $4,987. We also added this net income realized. That's basically just the net income of the things that have sold, not including any of the unsold item, the cost of the unsold items. And so the net income realized is always going to be a little bit higher there. We also have the ROI realized. Again, that's only considering the things that have sold. Those things we just added recently to your purchase location page as well. But yeah, this bulk buy is doing really well. I've almost made $5,000 net. Coming in at number 5, this is just a bread and butter pair of, just somewhat generic Nike women's shoes, but they sold for $51.98 in really good condition. The cost to ship, $6.79. The net return, $29.55. It did take 5 months to sell. So these are going to take a little bit longer to sell usually, unless they're just a very desirable pair of shoes, and often they're just not. Nike is also a very, very saturated category, but it's usually a safe one, and it'll eventually sell. Usually what it is people that already have the pair of shoes and they just want to buy the exact same pair in the exact same size, and sometimes it just takes some time to find that right buyer. In this case, it took 5 months, but I made $29.55. Coming in at number 4 is a pair of Oakley sunglasses. No, these aren't sunglasses. These are just regular glasses, but these are the frames only. And one interesting thing is I've been selling a lot of glasses, sunglasses, and regular glasses. And when they're prescriptions, you just can't sell them on eBay. You can't sell prescription glasses. So you have to sell them as frames only. And typically what I've been doing is just saying frames only in the title like that, but I would leave the frames in there. But I found that, again, people, not only do they not read the descriptions or look closely at the photos or anything, but they also just don't read the title. So I was just selling sunglasses that were frames only, and they would get them and say, hey, these are prescription. I'm like, well, yeah, that's why it's says frames only in the title. Anyway, what I ended up doing though is just a little bit of research on how to remove the lenses from the frames, and it's actually really, really simple to do it. It feels like you're going to break the glasses, but the glasses are typically just much more sturdy than they feel, and you can just sort of pop them out. You just sort of like you sort of bend the glasses ever so slightly, then pop them out on the inside near the bridge of the nose. It's actually a lot easier than it seems. So I'm glad I learned how to do that. Anyway, these sold for $51.98. It did take a month to sell, so pretty quick actually. My net return on them, $35.16. Coming in at number 3 is this Sony 4K Blu-ray disc player. I picked this up very recently, like 11 days ago at a garage sale for, what did I pay? I paid $5. I think y'all remember this from last week's video or 2 weeks ago. And it sold very quickly. And I think a big reason why this one sold as quickly as it did, and I even priced it high, but it just had everything. Like it was in the original box. It even had the little like plastic that you wrap it in. And again, this was used, but I made it look very appealing. And I think someone who's looking for a used DVD player or Blu-ray player, and sees this, it's going to be desirable because it looks well taken care of. And so this thing sold in only 2 hours. So it did take me a while to list, right? I had it for 11 days and finally listed it, and it sold in 2 hours. So there you go. Just another piece of motivation for you to go list your stuff, right? There's money just sitting there waiting to be made like this. My net return, $37.42. Coming in at number 2, this is a relatively new brand for me, Aloe. It's like Aloe, is it Aloe or Aloe? I don't really know, but it's kind of like a Lululemon, but I think better, like higher quality, definitely higher price point. This thing sold for $81.99. That's $75 plus $6.99 in shipping. Took 17 days. My net return, $57.38. I'm definitely keeping an eye out for this brand now. I wasn't aware of it until recently, but it's a very desirable brand, similar to Lululemon. So definitely keep an eye out. It's worth a lot of money. That leaves us with number 1 for this week. This is what is this? This is like an unpainted toy dragon that I believe is connected to the Dungeons and Dragons world. If y'all remember, a couple of weeks ago, I went to a garage sale that just had all sorts of stuff like this, and I just paid very little money for all of it. Like this, what was it? This was $2, and this is just one box of maybe 5 that I bought. It sold for $131.99, if you can believe that. The reason this thing is worth as much money as it is it's a Kickstarter exclusive. They did not make very many of these at all. You just can't go out and buy it anywhere. And so if somebody wants it, the only place they're going to get it is the secondhand market like eBay. And there's also just no comps, right? There was none actively listed. There was only a few sold, and none of this is very specific dragon. So I priced it high, right? The only other comp I could find was for a couple of different dragons that were similar in size, and they were on it was an auction for like $175. And so for one dragon, I went high at $125, and it sold in a day. So definitely a good pickup here. My net return on it, $105.11. And I've got still 4 or 5 more of these things to sell. So just on those dragons alone from this garage sale, which I spent maybe $6 or $8 on, there's probably going to be $400 to $500 in list value from that alone. This one brought in over $100 net return. Just pretty crazy. All right, lights out. Man, it is what happened. It's so cold now. Like I got back in town and it was like 20 degrees or so. In fact, I'm gonna have to turn on a fire here and warm up a little bit because I'm freezing, and it seems like half of the country is in the same boat. So hopefully this warms you up just a little. But yeah, so I've been gone for a lot lately. It's a very busy time of the year for me. One, I took the family to Disney World over Halloween. We had a ton of fun. We go to Disney not every year, but relatively frequently. I went as a kid back in the 80s, and I mean I guess I had fun. I don't really remember a ton of it, but I was never a Disney family, and so growing up and having kids, maybe like, I think it was 2018, we took our first trip to Disney, and I was totally expecting to tolerate it. It's like, okay, it's a trip for the kids, but I think I enjoyed it more than them. And so we've been back to Disney a ton, and y'all have heard me talk about this on the channel. That's how I use my reselling money. I do this part-time, and it's to fund vacations without having to dip into my regular income or my savings. So about 90% of the income we generate through reselling goes into vacations like this. And so this year we went to Disney. We also spent a day at Universal. We went to Epic Universe, the new one that just opened up, which they have like the Nintendo World, and I think they have a new Harry Potter thing. And the park was very cool if you haven't been yet. It was a really cool park, very well done, but just so crowded. Disney was also so crowded. You see headlines talking about Disney not being crowded anymore. Totally wrong. It was the most busy that I have seen it in all my years going, and I've been on Halloween before, and it wasn't this busy. So they're doing just fine. But Epic Universe, the new park, it was so crowded, and the lines for the big rides were so long. It made it not fun. And so we really enjoyed the park, but the rides were not very great. With one saving grace was Stardust Racers. I'm a big roller coaster fan. That's probably top 3, if not best. I don't know. It was just a really amazing roller coaster. So if you like roller coasters, definitely go to Epic Universe specifically for that. And then once we got back from Florida and all this stuff, I almost immediately went back out of town down to Tulsa, where I have family, to do the yearly pub run that I run every year, where it's like a 4-mile race. And on miles 2, 3, and 4, you got to chug a pint of Guinness. And so it's just, I'm a little bit older. I don't run quite as good as I used to. I certainly don't drink quite as good as I used to, but it's a fun time. I think I finished in 44 minutes and 3 seconds, which I was really happy with, right? For running 4 miles and drinking 3 pints of Guinness, 44 minutes I was very happy with. So anyway, I'm back home now. I'm very glad to be back home. I'm not going to do any traveling for a while. I need to dig back into the reselling business and get that back up and running strong again. But that's it. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.